our little workshop, Navigating the Academy of Management Conference for First-Time Attendees. I'm Gloria. I'm one of the co-hosts of this workshop, sponsored by the Global Committee from the OB division. And our little agenda looks like this. We have a short and warm welcome by the current OB division chair, Elizabeth George, and our OB Global Committee chair, Mina Paunova. And then we will discuss some perspectives on planning for and thriving when attending your first AOM meeting, where we have a setup of relatively new AOM members and some people who have been part of the AOM for a bit longer. And for the last set, we have scheduled a short Q&A session where you, our participants, can post your questions and anything else that comes to your mind. And for now, I'm happy to hand over for a short welcome from Elizabeth George and Mina.
Hello, everyone. Elizabeth, will you like to start? Can others hear Elizabeth?
No, not really.
Okay. Well, maybe I can say hi, everyone, while Elizabeth is figuring out her mic. I know she's sitting at near the train station and about to hop on a train in 20 minutes. So maybe that explains the technical issues for her. But my name is Mina Paunova, and I'm an associate professor at Copenhagen Business School, and also the chair of the global committee of the OB division. We'll share a little bit about the OB division and the global committee in a second. And I think both Elizabeth and I have prepared a little anecdote about our first AOM experience. Elizabeth, can you try saying something now? No. All right. Yes. And Elizabeth, Elizabeth is a full professor at Cambridge as of recently. I hope I'm getting all this right, Elizabeth. I haven't really been prepared, but she's the OB division chair and has been as part of the management of the OB division for several years now. And
Should I try now?
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. So apologies in advance for this very poor showing technologically, but all I can say is that I'm here to give you a very warm welcome to AOM. As Mina said, I am the OB division chair for this year. Also, like many of you, I've spent most of my career outside of the US. So going to the AOM is for me every year a global experience. So just a quick word of Mina said, can I talk about my first AOM? And that was in the Paleolithic era. I think I went a long, long time ago. But what I remember was being a very, very nervous doctoral student, trying to find as many corners as I could hide in as possible. But I think the two things, well, one thing that really helped was I found a few friends and hung on to them for dear life. And the thing that I can say is I'm still going 30 years later. I've been to every AOM in the last 30 years, and it is a wonderful, wonderful experience. There's a lot to learn, and I hope that you feel the same. So don't be put off if you initially are scared or intimidated. Just hang in there. Look for friendly faces, and I'll see you in the next, well, I won't be around 30 years, but I hope you will be. So as Mina said, I'm at the train station, so I will jump off this call in about 15 to 20 minutes. I'm not being rude, I just have to rush and catch a train. So welcome everyone, and see you in Chicago.
Yeah, thanks so much, Elizabeth, for joining us, even though you're kind of on the move. And my first AOM experience was just about 15 years ago or so. I'm not quite sure. It was in Montreal. And some memories fade a bit, but I remember very clearly that I was clinging on to my supervisor and kind of following them around and trying to get a glimpse of their schedule and, you know, what their plans were for the afternoon. And just like Elizabeth said, actually very much because of, you know, I was overwhelmed by the magnitude of AOM and the fact that I didn't really know anyone except for my supervisor and a few other faculty members of my school. And of course, it made sense to hang out, try to be close to them. They introduced me to a few of their faculty friends and colleagues, but I think in other ways, I'm sure I was a pain. And I think if I had a PhD student follow me around today, I would probably kind of sit them down and suggest that they have a better strategy on how they approach the conference and try to, we could meet in one or two social events, certainly, but tagging along wouldn't make a lot of sense otherwise, because the schedule of a halfway there PhD student, and I'm not sure, our audience today, I'm not sure how PhD students, but the halfway there PhD student or a young career scholar, early career researcher, their schedule probably looks significantly different from the schedule of a mid-career professor. And my supervisors meeting international co-authors and presenting in panel symposia, I should have been attending methods writing and publishing PDWs and networking with people my age and making friends with people kind of at my career stage and so on, which I subsequently started doing at my next AOM and so on. So now it's been 14 years going strong for me. I've missed one or two because of, having kids and so on, but I do hope to continue returning for many years to come. I do feel like it's a place that certainly not as overwhelming anymore, just a little bit. And thanks a lot for being with us here today to kind of hear a little bit about our experiences and hopefully kind of plan for what may make sense for all of you. Before we kind of move on to our panel and our panelists, Gloria, is it okay if I say a few words about the OP division and the global committee? And Elizabeth, please feel free to interrupt here and jump in. The OP division is currently the largest division of the Academy of Management. We are vibrant in a large, huge community of scholars, teachers, consultants, practitioners, and students from over 60 countries, over 6,000 members. And we, our focus areas are three currently, three priorities: rigor, relevance, and relationships. And we try to encourage rigorous scholarship, but also teaching and consulting that relies on research. And we also try to encourage scholarship that is relevant and practical, and that can help people address problems that they have in the workplace. And we strive to develop relationships with each other that are collaborative, supportive, and inclusive. I hope that sessions such as this help at least in the relationship building, and that at the Academy we'll have a chance to do this in person as well. I think we can move on to the Global Committee, which is one of the, I think maybe we have three committees, if I'm not, three standing committees, maybe more in the OB division, four standing committees in the OB division. One of them is the Global Committee, which was formed about 10 years ago, and our mission is to include, our mission is to welcome and support international members, basically to be more inclusive of international members, and to leverage the international character of the division to make sure that we offer sessions and both virtually and in person at the Academy conference, sessions that reflect our international membership and kind of facilitate those aspects of rigor, relevance, and relationships that I talked about, but specifically kind of targeted to folks sitting all around the globe and working all around the globe. Currently, we have 35 volunteers, and many of them are active. You'll be meeting several of them here today. Kind of, we're not equally balanced across the kind of different places in the world, though. A lot of our membership in the Global Committee of the OB Division is European. So we're very interested to welcome new volunteers from other parts of the world. And if that is something that you may be interested in, please reach out. I think at the end, we'll be sharing some contact information as well. And I think there was also some statistics that we wanted to share about submissions to the Academy this year, specifically when it comes to the OB division, scholarly submissions to the OB division. If you had paper accepted to the Academy, congratulations. That's not a small feat, especially if this is one of the first times that you submitted to the Academy. Very well done to you, because we received very many submissions in terms of papers. We received over 1,000 papers, and we accepted 50% of them. And so we rejected basically as many as we accepted. And about 9% of those made it to the best paper proceedings. In terms of symposia, we received 254 and accept about 70%. And we don't know if all of those that we rejected have been rejected elsewhere or have been accepted by some of the other divisions. And actually towards the end of today, our panelists will be talking a little bit about symposium papers. But also if you reviewed for the Academy, thank you so much for doing that. If you have not, please consider doing that this year, specifically for the OB division as well. We need a lot of reviewers this year. We used 1,500 reviewers to help us go through these multitudes of papers submissions. So I think that was kind of what I had, I believe, and but I'll be sticking around and happy to participate in the Q&A as well.
Thank you, Minna. That was quite a warm welcome, and I think we're good to go with our panel. First off, we're going around just shortly introducing ourselves. You already know me. I'm Gloria. I'm from Gießen in Germany, and I've been a member in the AOM and in the Global Committee both since 2022, since Seattle. So Seattle was my first AOM conference, so the experience is still quite fresh in mind. That's why I'm here today. Maybe Kyle.
My name is Kyle Earhart. I'm an associate professor at the University of Colorado at Denver. I am one of the more seasoned people in the group. I've been on the Global Committee since I think 16 or 17, so it's been a number of years now. So happy to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabby. I'm from Brazil, but I go to Case Western Reserve University. I'm a PhD candidate, and I joined my first AOM in 2020 online, and then I went to my first one in Seattle in person, and that's also when I joined the Global Committee. Thank you for joining us today.
Is Juliana here? I don't think so. Okay, and the other member who's usually participating in this workshop is Juliana, who also came up with the idea of hosting this workshop, so kudos to her. And right, I think then it's Gabby's and my turn to start, and I'll hand over the mic to Gabby.
Thank you. So we wanted to cover first the things you should, it's helpful to do before the event. So one of the most important things we are talking about OB. So AOM has a lot of different divisions, I think more than 25 divisions. So they cover all the possible topics you do your research or you are interested on, including topics for management education, managerial cognition, information systems. So we have a bunch of different topics, and you can be part of 2 divisions for free with your AOM membership. So for example, you can sign up for OB and you can sign up for a different division, and you can also add additional divisions as you see fit for a small fee. It's interesting to know that soon, because you start receiving emails when you sign up for the divisions, and the emails cover a bunch of things, including sessions that are going to happen during AOM, and a lot of other opportunities and information that you need to be successful at the conference. Gloria, Kyle, do you want to add anything else about the divisions? Okay, so we can move on. Also, before the event, there are some practical things you can do. The first one would be to secure a visa. If you have to get a visa to go to the US, start that process as soon as possible. The US consulates are still having some backlog, even from COVID a few years ago. So the sooner you start there, the safest you are to get the visa and plan your trip over to Chicago this year. But also accommodations are also open, and the AOM conference offers a bunch of different hotels for a cheaper fee than you get outside. Um, and besides the special deals, you can get a room and you can find people, either your friends or your colleagues or some people you meet even in the AUM divisions that you can share room with, and then you can also reduce cost that way if that helps you enjoying the conference better. And it also helps because then you get to know people and you have a close friend to hang out with even during the breaks. And I just make a personal note on this. The first year I went to AUM, I did not know about the accommodations, and then they were all booked. They have student pricing, and I wasn't able to get that. So I did meet people, and I decided to share a room because they had a reservation, so that was also helpful. But even if there are no rooms available right now, a lot of people give up coming to AOM during the process, so they cancel their room reservations. So rooms might become available closer to the meeting. So just keep checking if there are no rooms available right now. It's interesting to stay as close as possible to the conference because then you reduce a lot of traveling time. Chicago is a really big city. Traffic can get really complicated, especially with 10,000 AOM participants in the city. So it can be really helpful to stay close by, and most divisions tell you which hotel most of their sessions are. So you can also choose to be in the hotel that has most sessions of the OB division or of the smaller division you are part of, so that you are closer to the sessions you are more interested on. Anything else? Okay, so we can move on. And then one special note that Nina even started mentioning a little bit, we have the different consortiums for PhD, early PhD students, halfway PhD students, and almost graduating PhD students. And we also have consortiums for junior faculty. So it's important to know. And there are also different consortiums depending on which divisions you are interested on. OB has all these consortiums, but the other divisions will also have consortiums. And there are even divisions that are taking a different approach. For example, Research Methods is hosting a consortium that runs online in June. And you get the opportunity to meet people even before the conference. And then when you get to the conference in August, you already know people from different schools. But also there are consortiums at AOM that you just have to attend different sessions of the division and you show that you were there, and that's the way you participate of the consortium instead of being a full day activity. So there are different ways and approaches to the consortium, and that's why it's important to receive the newsletters from each division you are interested on, because then you get to know what those opportunities are. The AOM program takes a little longer to be published just because of the huge amount of sessions we have and all the changes that are going to happen until then. So this is a way you can start knowing and get ready for the consortiums, but also for the PDWs. They have the professional development workshops. They have always a specific theme. So can it be, for example, about writing quantitative papers? It can be about actively learning and using a different methods such as agent-based modeling. So they have a very varied set of topics, and because you are working close together within 2 or 3 hours with other people and actively trying to learn or get feedback on writing qualitative papers, you actually network better and actually get to know people, which might be harder in social events, especially in the OB division, since there's so many people there. So this is a way to wet your toe a little bit to test the waters. And then you get to the social events already knowing people and learning the process, right? Which is hopefully our goal in joining the conference. And that's what makes it so interesting and insightful. Also, it's when you have I'll show you a little bit about the program, but you can filter sessions for professional development workshops, panel sessions, so that'll make you a little more clear what types of sessions you are talking about, so you go ready. You know that when it's a professional development workshop, it's usually a hands-on workshop versus a panel in which you'll sit and listen to people talk about a specific topic. But most of the PDWs, especially if you're getting personalized feedback from scholars in your developmental paper or your research ideas, you have to submit something sooner. Or for example, for the OB Doctoral Consortium, you have to apply for that sooner. The deadline for the OB Doctoral Consortium, that's for almost graduating PhD students, the deadline was on April 26th, so that's already passed. But there are other opportunities that are still open, even in the OB division, but also in other divisions that you can take part of. And that's why it's important to get the news. I know I keep saying that, but it's really important. And this is the last thing I wanted to show you. That's how you can build your schedule. Usually the web-based program that it's a website, it's usually more reliable than the phone app because the app is so heavy because of all the sessions and figures and all of that. But you can use even the web-based program in your phone. You just open it in any website navigator. And that's kind of the view you have, at least until last year. We don't think that it has changed for this year. But as you can see, you can look up names by the session title. You also can filter by type of session. So for example, speaker symposium, panel symposium, professional development workshop, consortium, all the options will be there. You can also filter for the sponsoring division. So for example, if you're interested in OB, you can filter so you only see the sessions from the OB division. And that makes it much more helpful for you, for all of us, because there are just so many sessions happening all the time and usually at the same time, that when you filter for the division of interest, it makes it easier for you to see and get information. But you can also filter by day and time, by the hotel. So if you want to stay close to the hotel your next session is, you can see which sessions are happening that way. And then you can click to add once you sign up. You can see which sessions are there, and you can add them to your own personalized agenda. So you'll have all the sessions you are interested on in your program, and then you can choose which ones you're gonna go to that way. I think if anyone wants to add anything on regard to that, otherwise you can move on.
I wanted to say, Gabby, sorry, that we will we'll share the slides with all the registered participants. So you will receive the slides later today. There was a question in the chat about consortia. I'm looking into the details. I'm not sure the program. I'm not sure I can tell you the exact time yet, but I'm looking into this now, and if I have the information, I'll get back to you during our meeting today. Otherwise, I can share the information together with the slides later on.
And I also this session there will be consortium for midway PhD students. It's called Halfway There. So that's the title. If you want to write that down and then look it up.
Yeah.
It hasn't open applications yet, so we still have the opportunity to join that.
And there was a question about the hotel. The OB sessions will be at the Swiss Hotel. Swiss Hotel is where the OB sessions will be taking place. So I think we had that in one of the slides, at least a photo of the hotel. Yeah, I'm not sure there's any rooms left in the hotel, but as Gabby mentioned, they may open up as we near the conference. So keep an eye out. That was it from me.
Okay, perfect. Thanks to both of you. Gabby covered a whole lot of the things to do before the event, before AOM taking place. And I want to talk a little more about what to do at the event when you're really in Chicago, feeling lost. And we have several topics on this part. First of all is the socialization. I think Gabby already mentioned you have social events in the evening, you have PDWs, you have consortia, you have paper and symposia sessions. So there's really a lot to do during those 5 days. And you have also a lot to process. Like at AOM, usually around 10,000 people attend. So that's quite a lot. You will be walking through town, see all those people with those badges. It says Academy of Management Conference. We're everywhere. So you can use this really as an opportunity to network. And the best tip we've received is to really try and network with people at your own level, because those are your peers. Those are your colleagues, your fellow doctoral students, for example. And maybe in a few years' time, your fellow professors or assistant professors or colleagues for that matter. So you really have the opportunity to build your network and focus on interactions that are meaningful to you, that you really profit from, and that you can build sustainably. Because really, not to bash it, but like the big shot names, they're so like booked out, and you really get, for example, crazy to meet like the real big names, but you maybe change a word or two with them, and that's it, because they're really up pressed for time, for example. And you can really use the event to schedule meetings with fellow PhD students or your friends or distant colleagues you might know from collaborations, and really also try and maybe explore the city a bit, because you get to, for several people who come from outside the US, you get to the US, for example, to Seattle, Boston, Chicago, and then really only see the conference center. Doesn't make any sense, really. And in the evening, a lot of divisions or sponsoring schools host several events, sometimes several in the same night. You can attend, some require pre-registration again. The mail server and the list is important, so you get the news for which events you have to pre-register, for example. Right, and that's for socialization, really a good point where you can meet people, where you can just informally chat to people, where you will meet fellow PhD students or doctoral candidates or assistant or associate profs, and just have a chat and maybe draw from for future collaborations. And another big topic close to my own heart is the dressing and the dress code at AOM. In I think when the AOM first started, it was quite formal or rather formal. A lot of people in maybe suit and tie or costume or nice dress. And when I first went to Seattle, I was under the impression that I had to dress and represent really formally. So I packed accordingly. And then I wore those clothes, and you could see I wasn't really comfortable representing that much formality. And I went there and I saw people wearing jeans and a button-up shirt or like a blouse and nice trousers. And I was like, okay, I could have dressed way more comfortable and casual than I packed. And also relating to what Gabby said with booking the hotels close to the venue, we booked late when we went to Seattle, my colleague and I. So the hotels near the conference venue were already booked. And we had stay quite far away, like a 30-minute walk or something. I didn't pack comfortable enough shoes, so my feet were covered in blisters. That's another big tip for me or from me. Always try and pack comfortable shoes. You will be on your feet a lot during those days, so it's better to make maybe a cut in formality and give yourself more leisure in being comfortable. And the dress code itself has changed to be more of business casual, so you can really see and pack like nice trousers and a blouse or button up, and try and pack maybe clothes that are easy to mix and match. It will also like save space in your luggage. And the next big point is really about your own presentation at AOM when you go there and present, which I just assume you do. The slot where you present your paper is rather tight, and the schedule is really tightly packed. So if the program says your session will be 90 minutes long, it will really be 90 minutes long, not any longer. So you usually have between 8 and 12 minutes for your own presentation, which is quite a short amount of time. It will fly by sooner than you expected. And it's not common that an eager discussion develops after your presentation. You probably won't receive a lot of feedback for your presentation. And this is something you have to keep in mind so you don't be discouraged, for example. Right. Maybe when you're in a symposium or in a paper session, there might be a discussant who then summarizes like the content of several papers who you presented. Sometimes questions are directed directly to the discussant. Sometimes if it's more of a panel discussion, more of a panel symposium, questions are directed to the presenters directly. But it's really a matter of 1 or 2 questions and not that you will receive a lot of feedback on your own paper. So really try and take your own presence at AOM and your own presenting more of an opportunity to be there, to get exposure, maybe try and network with people who are in a similar research stream as you yourself, and don't think that you really will receive a lot of feedback. In my first AOM, for example, I had the privilege to go without presenting anything, which really took a lot of pressure from me. And I was able to focus on just joining different sessions, exploring the event, getting to know people, making connections, and yeah, joined the OB committee. And last part or last tip from our side is to not get lost in the structure. A couple of slides ago, you just saw the schedule. And it really is a lot. We have several thousand sessions. We have like over 10,000 people who will probably attend the AOM. And although paper sessions and PDWs are the most prominent part, the AOM has a lot more to offer. You just heard about Dr. Consortia, you heard about social events, and you can also always get involved, like, for example, joining a committee. The calendar and the program, if you're not familiar with it, they can easily overwhelm you. And it's really best to be quite specific about what you want from the calendar, from the program, and really filter for those sessions. And when I first went, and when I went with a colleague who has been there before, and when I wasn't clinging to her or chatting with her, I felt pretty lost because she knew all those people and she was meeting her friends, and I knew literally one person, that was her. So I started chatting to advisors I met in the new attendees welcome room, which they always have. And they told me about ways to get involved in the AOM. For example, you can always review for AOM in winter, when the deadline has passed. You can join a committee and you can just do volunteer work, for example. And in the welcome room, you can meet fellow newbies at AOM. And I started to chat to some people. Another new attendee complimented me on the blouse I was wearing. So you start just chatting. And they're as new as you are and probably as lost as you are. And that's quite nice, to be fair. So far from my part, I think I hand over to Kyle now.
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the offerings that are specific to the OB division, and also a little bit about the Career Center for those of you who might be interested in that aspect of what goes on at AOM. And I'll also just offer a couple things that, as I go through these, that were items that are something that I kind of took away from a previous experience here as well, to hopefully help you. These are the global committee sponsored PDWs from the OB division. So the PDWs that our group put together that are on the schedule. You will find when they are, when the schedule comes out, but you will find all of these on the schedule. One thing I think is a good thing for those who are really coming for the first time, this gives you a pretty good idea of the way some PDWs are kind of broad and some PDWs are very narrow. So one has a real targeted, those thinking of a position in the Asian region, when you're coming out of school. It's kind of a really targeted audience. But for something like how to publish in top international journals, the audience is very broad. So you will see both of these things from all the divisions on the schedule that come. Some of these require registration and some of these don't. And that'll also be marked on the schedule as well. But it kind of gives you an idea about what these would be. Go ahead, the next one. There are also usually some social events sponsored by different groups. This is the social event that the global committee sponsors. That's on Friday evening. Very often social events will have pre-registration, regardless of who hosts it, if they are kind of special offsite social events. Any kind of, let's say, division social or things like that will usually not require pre-registration or any kind of extra cost. So like we're having a architectural boat tour. That's on Friday evening. That does require pre-registration, but it can be a really great way to meet people in a little bit more intimate of a setting. Something like this can be very useful. These kind of things usually leave also very close to one of the conference hotels, so they're actually pretty accessible as well. Also on here, you see our meeting time for our committee on Sunday from 1 to 2. That will also be announced on the schedule as to where it is. You always see, even the committees will be included on the schedule as well, not just the general sessions. So you'll find those on there. And for anyone who's interested, please consider coming. We are always looking for new people, to join this group. And the new people who join this group take active roles. This session was organized by people who have been on this committee for the first time for less than a year, and then this year for less than 2 years. So we're always looking for people who kind of take on roles and do these kind of things in this group. You're always welcome, so please consider doing so if this is of interest. It's also a great way to meet others, and you will meet people at different stages. One of the presenters today is a PhD candidate. This is, we're always looking for people at different stages here as well. You go ahead. These are just some highlights for the OB division that you will find as well. All of the divisions are going to have some kind of things like this. So just a little bit note about divisions. If you're here, we figure you're interested in OB. And many of you are probably in the OB division. The OB division is huge. And it is not a bad idea to think about other divisions that might be a little bit smaller as well, that might be a little bit more targeted to your area. A lot of people, for example, are in the OB division and the careers division, or the OB division and the MOC division, which is managerial organization. Something in cognition, I'd say, but there's a technology in management that is also often used with the OB division. There's a research methods division, and many of these divisions are a little bit smaller. If you find the OB division to be a little overwhelming, you are certainly welcome to pair that with something else that's a little smaller. And you do not need to be a member of a division to go to their social event, to go to their meeting. You can do this not as a member, and it's not a bad idea to do that, especially if you're looking for something a little bit smaller in addition to just being in the OB division, because the OB division is a great division, but it can be overwhelming. So you should be, aware of that kind of going in. It's big, it's really big. But all of these different groups are going to have these kind of lifetime awards and, special sessions and award ceremonies. Usually the socials always follow the meetings. So they'll have a business meeting and then a social, and they don't all overlap. You will find these at different times. Sometimes they're on Saturday night, sometimes they're on Sunday night. So you do have a chance to go to a couple different things, and it's not a bad way to do it. I think the last thing I need to talk about a bit is the Career Center, because a number of people might be thinking about, participating in that this year. I'm sure many of you are aware that the AOM has a Career Center. There are a number of interviews that take place at AOM. A couple notes sort of about what the Career Center is. The Career Center is I believe, free to register for all people who are registering to look for jobs now. It used to not be, but I believe it has been for the last few years. The AOM job board is the primary place that you will see many universities post jobs. What you typically will see if you're on the Career Center site is you will see a number of different jobs that typically can be sorted by the order in which they were posted. And as you get close to AOM, you are going to see a number of places make mention in some of their posts that they will be conducting preliminary interviews at AOM, or they will be interviewing or willing to talk to candidates at AOM, or things like this. So if you look on the board now and don't see that many jobs listed, don't be alarmed. These very often get posted as you get into May, June, and even July. And you very often will see people mention specifically that they are going to hold talks at AOM. And so making sure you apply before that, usually for the following year. So if you're interviewing in the summer of this summer, it would be for a start in 25. That's pretty typical. I can tell you from experience that there are some schools that weigh the AOM interviews they conduct very heavily. And there are some that use them as just kind of a get to meet a candidate. And there are some that don't weigh them at all. It varies a lot school to school on how much these will matter. But if you're planning to go on the market, it's good to be prepared because there's at least some that will take this opportunity and the interviews they conduct at AOM, and they are meaningful for their, in terms of how they build their candidate pool for the year. In terms of, opportunities to meet employers and things like this, I would say be really cognizant of what people say on their ads for the jobs that they post, because they will almost always say something about, as you get closer to AOM, about what they're going to do or expect to do in terms of contacting candidates or communicating with candidates at AOM. There is usually also one hotel where the Career Center is. So if you're aware of where that is, that might have some implication on where you decide to stay also. If it's not available at that hotel, to be somewhere close to it is not a bad idea, because you're going to walk outside to go to it. Bring an umbrella. That happened to me once, when I was going for an interview once at AOM at a place, and it does have a, being prepared for that kind of little stuff is helpful to know. Would you like me to talk about this as well? Okay. One of the things that, this is obviously not going to be as relevant for this year for everybody, but it could be for next year. One thing that many people, I think, don't necessarily realize, right away their first time submitting to AOM, is some of the advantages that come with thinking about a symposium submission instead of a paper submission. You already saw the acceptance rates for what those were earlier today. The numbers in terms of papers that are accepted for AOM across divisions, so not just for OB, is usually right about 50%. And it's been that way since like 2015 or 2014, as long as I've been going to AOM. It is a much harder thing to get a paper accepted at AOM than it is a symposium. Symposiums are usually kind of organized a little bit in advance with people with some similar ideas or interests, and symposiums are not blind reviewed. So when they're put together, there usually is a set of, let's say, presentations along with a discussant, and how they're organized, how well they connect, and things like that are evaluated, as opposed to just evaluating one overall paper. So what you see in terms of here about some of the things that a symposium offers versus a paper are a number of reasons why it might be worth considering submitting a symposium as opposed to submitting a paper. Doesn't mean you shouldn't consider submitting papers. It's just something that sometimes the symposiums sometimes will be a little bit submitted at a higher number of people a little bit more later in their careers, partly because they know these advantages that come with acceptance and some other things. So if you know these things up front, it's worth thinking about if something could be organized, in the future to do it. It's just the numbers are better across the different divisions when it comes to symposia.
Thank you, Kyle. Yeah, for the last part, we have just summarized the main takeaways from the last 40 minutes you just heard. As Minna mentioned, you will get the slides after the session. So no need to screenshot it, no need to write it down, but just try and register early for your appropriate divisions and interest groups, so you get all the news via the mailing list, and really use the event to network, to get to know people. Don't really stress about how many people will be there, and don't really stress about your own presentation. It will fly by. And yeah, just don't get overwhelmed. Find your niche, get involved, and come to a meeting. Let's connect and have fun, probably. So I think that summarized all the main points. Mina, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I actually think we have one more slide where we advertised our LinkedIn group.
Yeah, it's right in the end, after
okay.
the Q&A. But should I just jump to it?
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, there's nothing on here that I think you all did a great job summarizing these points, so there's nothing really for me to add, but I think if, yeah, I don't know if Gabby or Kyle have anything. Otherwise, maybe we can open it to see if people have any questions. I mean, I know we answered.
I'll just add one other kind of thing just for everybody. You know, all of you you're here because it's probably your first time. You know, Minna and I have been are the two more long-standing people who have been coming for longer than the rest. And I can tell you that there are still times where this conference feels big, where you feel like you're standing by yourself, whether you know, it's not something that's just it's still a little uncomfortable. It's going to be that way, and it's okay. And you know, 15 years later, it's still that way. You know, it does get better, but it's something that, you know, don't feel like you're alone or out of place with something like this, because it even happens to people who are more seasoned and who have been coming for a longer time. It really does. So just, take a deep breath and it'll be all right.
And I just like to add one thing too, which is it's very easy because there's so many exciting sessions happening all day long. It's very easy to get caught up and just go to one session after the next, and you are just packed on that. And at a certain point, that together with the 10,000 people and everything else that's going on, it can get too much. So I just say, be careful to retain your energy to actually develop meaningful connections instead of just quickly going to a session, just listening to some things people are saying and then running away without actually talking to anyone else to go to your next session. So it's very easy because there's so many exciting things happening, but it's important to actually take time and get to know people instead of just running from one session to the next.
Yeah, I think that summarized it pretty well. Thank you all. And I think we have a couple of minutes to just open our Q&A session. So if anything comes to your mind, feel free to pose a question, to write it in the chat. I can't really see neither, but maybe the others can.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you all for hosting this. This is super helpful and informative. I had a question about, you mentioned social events. Is when or where would one be finding that information for registration, or for where would I find that type of information? Thank you.
Yeah, all of this will be available when the program becomes available in, I believe, early June this year. So every year it becomes available a little later, but I think this year will be early June, and you'll be able to filter sessions by division that hosts the sessions or kind of organize the sessions, and by session type. So there will be PDWs, plenary sessions, social events, scholarly sessions, and so on. So if you're interested in OB social events, you should be able to click those two columns and kind of see all of those. I think we kind of summarized many of them on this slide, those that were OB specific, but of course, all other divisions will have their own social events. This should be out in June with the program.
And you'll see overlap in attendees from people. You know, a number of people who will attend the OB social event will also attend another one that's in a related division that's on a different day. You know, so it's not like these are not real siloed. There is a lot of crossover across the number of these. So it's not inappropriate to go to more than one and to attend more than one of these. It's a good thing to do, in fact.
Got it. Thank you so much.
We got a question in the chat about advice for prospective PhD applicants who are applying this cycle. How can they get the most out of AOM?
I'll say one thing, and then I'll maybe well, the more recent PhD students maybe have advice, and maybe Kyle, you do too. But there is a relatively new a PDW that the OB division sponsors specifically for prospective PhD applicants. And I copied it in the chat earlier on. It's called How to Succeed in the PhD Admission Process, a consortium for predoctoral students. most likely will take place on Friday from 1 to 4 o'clock. But you should be able to see that in the program. And I think it's a good idea to once again sign up for the list server, the discussion forum, so that you get any advance notification for that specific session. In addition to that session, I don't know, do other people have tips?
I'd say if you know where you are applying for in the fall, try to get to know current PhD students from those programs to really know how the program is going to be like, or any other insights they have, because it's very tough to know what the environment is going to be like and how good of a fit is going to be for you in your research when you're applying. The same goes for jobs, right? But if you know people from the university, from the department, you can get to know them and you can understand a little bit of how things work in the department. So that's helpful too.
That's a great point, Gabby. You can definitely kind of reach out, drop an email to some of the current PhDs in the schools you're considering and schedule meetings, coffee chat in advance with
Right. And they usually have more free time, as Gloria said before, than senior famous professors. So you can get to know them and ask them for a coffee or ask them to join you at a social event you're going to, and you can just chat and connect that way. Or you can also look them up in the program and see which sessions they are being organizers or they are presenting papers, and then you can get to know what level they are and what activities they are doing at AOM to see if that's what you want for you.
Maybe we have just a minute, unless there's another kind of question from the audience. Maybe we can say a word about our group, because I think that's also a place where people can pose questions if once they kind of come along in preparation for the conference. Should I do that, or? Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. And we actually we do maybe have in the audience someone from the AOM or organizers. I don't know if you're with us, maybe you're welcome to say a word here, but there will be another webinar, which is AOM wide for all divisions, for all the newcomers in July. So that could be helpful if you still have questions pending. And more available online, more information for this. Would you go on to the next one? Yeah, and we do have a LinkedIn group specifically for newcomers to the OB division, where we'd love to welcome you, and you can connect with us and with each other, and actually hopefully use it as a forum to discuss any concerns or questions you may have as well, and share information, perhaps, link with each other to actually schedule an in-person meeting and so on. And this is the second year that we have this event online, so you will find some participants who were first-time comers last year. So your second cohort this year, hopefully we can get this going for several years to come. Thanks so much to well, Juliana was not here, but for having the idea for this workshop. Gabby, Kyle, Gloria, thank you so much to our panelists for giving us a run through this exciting and overwhelming at times event. Thanks to Elizabeth, who had to leave, and thanks so much to Vlad and Danki, who are taking care of all the tech stuff. Thanks a lot to all of you. Hope to see you soon.
And thanks a lot to Mina as well, not to forget.
Yeah, thanks. Have a nice day.
I will just leave the slide, so if anyone wants to scan the QR code right now, you can do that.